Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff. As you can probably already tell, I am playing a little bit hurt, under the weather today, but I did get into the building for Islanders versus Blues. I played hurt for the Islanders win, and we'll also be without Tim Kalinowski today, as he is coaching a state quarterfinals game in high school hockey in Massachusetts. So best of luck to Tim and his charges. But I do have Nick Martin here with me, and together the two of us are going to break down an upcoming 12 game slate in the NHL for Thursday, March the 7th. And with a slate this deep, we'll always start with our favorite underdogs. I will note this was a pretty tough one to come up with some underdogs for, but we both are in agreement on yours, so I'll kick it over to you right now.
Yeah, did we sweep Tuesday's underdogs? I think maybe. Anyways, I like the Leafs at their plus 120's best number I'm seeing as of Wednesday. I think anything better than even money is worth a play. They are back to back. They play tonight in Toronto versus Buffalo, and then tomorrow they get the Bruins, who have looked better over the last two games. But I do think that those were kind of favorable runnings of those games. They had a huge win Monday over Toronto and really just came out and stormed them in the first period and then kind of rode that to a win. I thought the Leafs could have had a lot more goals as that game went on. And I just think that with kind of the way Boston's played lately, and even that Edmonton game where they did do a really good job of keeping the Oilers' stars in check, I also think that's the reason I like the Leafs here if you're getting better than even money. I think that Toronto is still more likely to own more of the play, and that it's really just going to come down to what kind of goaltending they see. And the Leafs have actually responded fairly well this year. We'll see how it goes tonight. This is before that game, but I still kind of think that this number is just too long. And I think if you really look at it, most models have around 50%. I think that's fair. I can see where the Leafs have some edges. I can see where the Bruins have some edges. And then the other thing we've noted, the Leafs have reverse splits, and I kind of buy into that too. So while Boston is a really good home team, I do kind of want to tap into the Leafs reverse splits a little bit as well. They've been red hot. Like it feels like it's so easy to forget it with this Toronto team, but they've won 13 of 17, had over 60% of the actual goals. Their underlying results kind of suggest that that is their rate. And the way the top nine currently looks is pretty good. They're always going to have their usual flaws, but again, I just think they're in with a slightly better chance than the current plus 120. So yeah, give me the Leafs as my underdog here.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that you summed that one up well. I think we kind of knew this was going to come, uh, that this number would look a little bit, you know, I don't want to say disrespectful to Toronto, but a tad disrespectful because of what happened on Monday night, and the fact that they'll be on a back-to-back. People just won't realize the Bruins are on a 3-4 as well. Uh, for my favorite underdog, I'm gonna go back to a team I've been getting in bed with a lot lately. That's your Washington Capitals. Right now they're plus 142 against the Penguins. That Penguins coming back minus 170, and this one's 6.5 for the total. I like the Caps for a couple of reasons. I think that we're gonna see them get that disrespect or skepticism from the betting market because they'll be trading players. We've seen that in the past already this season with like the Flames are the perfect example that sometimes the betting market will overrate those kind of things and the players that are coming out for Washington and just not being at the uh, not being irreplaceable. I will say Anthony Mantha does move the needle a little bit, both for Washington and in the wrong direction and the immediate term, and then for Vegas in the right direction. But I also expect the Penguins to be resting a few players here. I don't think it'd be crazy to suggest that Riley Smith won't play in this game. Maybe Marcus Pettersson, uh, as well, depending on what goes on with the what the Penguins have cooking at the trade deadline. So this number could go actually in a number of different directions. I do like Washington though, and anything better than if you can get 145, and that's what I'll be targeting on Thursday with my favorite underdog in what could be a pretty weird matchup, maybe the weirdest of the Sid versus Ovi era, considering where both teams are.
Yeah, I like this pick too, and I actually don't think we will see better. I thought that this looked a little long on the Caps, and that it does feel like one that'll kind of come down. Whether it's kind of been one of the things that's killing me is just because I'll like not want to fade the Caps in a lot of these games, despite the fact that I kind of feel like they're going to lose. And then some of the ones where I will have been when they're playing a better team and then they find a way. They've been really good versus like on the road and as underdogs into making games into a coin flip and just hanging around. Pittsburgh, meanwhile, has just been incredible at finding ways to lose
Right.
and not capitalize on run of play at all and just making every game into a game somehow. I think Columbus, I know you were on them last night. I thought that pick was fine. I mean, it could have gone either way. Some of the Indians' goals were pretty comical, and it does feel like they're just liable to make every game a contest with the way their D can fall apart and when they get on the back foot. So I agree. I think there's enough question marks with the Pens that this is a little long. And yeah, the Mantha's obviously been one of the legitimately good capitals this year. There's a lot of guys that I say are like come in out of the lineup and someone else comes in. It doesn't matter. They have a ton of guys like that where it's just like they have so many middling forwards where it doesn't really matter. I do think obviously Mantha hurts because he had been on a really good line. But they still have guys, and I'm excited to come in. Wilson's gonna should play more minutes again. He's been due to pick up his game. He's been really bad, so I think maybe that's a guy you look to play better. And then I'm excited to see Mershnichenko get back in. I think he has some legitimate offensive upside. So they have the guys to handle that. I still like the way the defense core shakes out right now. Good goaltender. So yeah, the Caps have been pretty scrappy as big underdogs lately. I think this is a solid look for sure.
All right, those are our underdogs, and I know that you can bet AHL numbers at some sports books, but I really wonder what kind of price you're getting on the Hershey Bears these days with Evgeny Kuznetsov looking uh, down in the AHL.
Don't
Uh,
forget Phillips.
and
He's back
Phillips,
down.
yeah, right, exactly. Um, get those Hershey Bears futures in now. Okay, onto the big board. We'll start with a team that's just made an addition already today. That's the Edmonton Oilers. They're minus 260-ish in Columbus. The Jackets plus 210. This total is at 6.5. I had a feeling you were going to go in the direction you're going. Uh, Before I pass it over to you on your betting thoughts for this game, I just want to note that I actually think Adam Henrique was a force for a lot of teams, but I think for Edmonton, it's not terrible. I guess like if you're going to compare him to Jake Gensel, who they were rumored with, of course you're going to come out a little disappointed. But the truth is, like the Edmonton Oilers, because of the top six, like they just need capable guys with like a little decent upside in other roles, and I think Henrique actually fills those holes for them. For other teams that were looking to acquire him, I don't know if he made much sense. And I know that the price was steep, but if in terms of just the immediate term, if you're holding an Oilers ticket, I think I'd feel like a smidge better about where the Oilers are than I did before they traded for Henrique and Sam Carrick. What are your thoughts on the trade for the Oilers going forward and this game?
Yeah, I think it's a good solid trade. I think the reality was that, and I know you agree, it was going to be really hard for the Oilers to pay the price to get Gensel. And I don't think it would have, he obviously helps. Like he would have been a huge addition as a second line winger for them. He also wouldn't ever have broken their top power play, which hurts his usage a lot. And I know guys get injured, and that'd be one of the main upsides to having him is like once someone gets down, you still have a guy you can just plug in to that role and be more effective. But I think for them to have paid up the price didn't necessarily make that much sense considering the biggest flaws. Um, they did finally put CC on the third pair last night. And when I talk about how I think they need an upgrade at D, first off, because if you get injured, they're pretty thin. And second off, I'm not saying that CC should come out of the lineup. I know you'll hear a lot of like the Oilers players and the Oilers fans state how loved he is in the room. And I think that is a factor. My thing would be just trying to get someone that you can more minutes and try to hide him a little bit there. Not saying he needs to come out of the lineup. And I think that that's part of the reason it didn't make that much sense for the Oilers to like really pay up to get Gensel when probably this move and one move on the back end makes the most sense. I think that's the best way for them to attack it. From the price standpoint, I don't think you're like thrilled to give up a first for Henrique. I know that's kind of the going rate, but I think it's kind of the same statement as some of the other things. Like I think Vegas did better getting Mantha for what they did, and I know they're not necessarily the most comparable players, but I just think like this was a fairly steep price, as much as the move does make sense. We'll see how that handicaps kind of their ability to make other moves. And then, yeah, for this game, I think that is a good spot to target kind of the Bruins are a completely different matchup. And I think right now the Oilers' defensive play has it really stabilized the last week, but I still think they're not like the full-blown defensive wagon we've seen kind of the last 2 months. And we've seen Columbus, they have three lines rolling right now. They can really kind of surprise teams, I think, with the amount of offensive firepower they have. Goudreau and Roslovic have really kind of found some better form on the top line. Love the I know Marchenko sat last game, but I think he'll get back in and that line will get back to looking the way they should. And then the third line looks pretty productive. So I think that the Blue Jackets are kind of going to trend to being a pure over team. And then I like the way obviously that Edmonton can attack the Blue Jackets and get on them. And I still don't think we'll see Merzlikins play, right? At this point, it's like, why would you play him in this game when you haven't been playing him? So soft goaltender for the Blue Jackets. I think this one has some good avenues to get over.
Okay, we'll move on to Flyers and Panthers next. Both these teams have actually been active today as well. Philadelphia trades away Sean Walker, a top four offensive defenseman, to Colorado. They get Ryan Johansson, then they waived Ryan Johansson in return, along with a first round pick. The Panthers acquired Vladimir Tarasenko for some mid-round draft picks as well. The Flyers are plus 190 in this game. The Panthers have won six in a row. I think they've won eight. They won eight in a row, lost won six in a row. They've won 16 of 18, and they now are odds-on favorite to win the President's Trophy. They have the best record at time of recording. They have the best goal difference by 12 in the NHL standings. All their 5-on-5 numbers are elite. Their special teams is elite. Their goaltending has been superb. And I actually, this is the kind of game that, having said all that, that I try to target the Flyers in these kind of matchups where that they stand a better chance of not getting caved in at 5-on-5 than most teams against a team like Florida. Philly's 5-on-5 numbers have been consistently good for most of the season. That defensively they should be responsible. The problem is the lineup now is getting thin. Drysdale's hurt, Sealer's hurt, Walker's been traded, Konechny's banged up. He did practice and he makes a difference, obviously, but uh, it was still like I would need some convincing to still bet the Flyers, but I would be on that side of the line if anything in this game. So what are your thoughts here? I think that you and I are both in agreement. We talked about how Colorado was one team that had the potential to get significantly and crucially better at the trade deadline. I think we both agree that they did that with the trades for Middlestat and Walker, Bowen Byram being subtracted out. Vladimir Tarasenko, to me, like you talked about Jake Gensel, the key to that trade could end up hypothetical trade to Edmonton could have just been he's great insurance in case someone gets hurt. I kind of feel that way about Tarasenko. At least like you don't have to force it with him. I think in the top six and on the power play, and I get like you're not getting full value for him if he's not in an ideal role, but in my mind, I think that it's just good depth to have for this team, and I don't think it moves the needle either direction for Florida. Uh, Anything here on this game, on these trades that these two teams have been involved in today, and anything else?
Yeah, the one thing that I'll say, just like you said, I thought the Avs were the number one most likely candidate to be able to make a trade that like made me actually want to bet they're outright. And I think they've done exactly that because Middlestat is going to be huge for them. And Byram had really, really struggled defensively this year. So when you look at like the plug and play of these two guys, if they can kind of keep up their level and fit in, I think it really does make a difference. So the Avs best number out there, Bet365, still has plus 1100. I really hope that holds because I don't think you're going to see better than that. I think it's another ticket that you want in your pocket when you get to the dance. And then when I talk about, I think the Panthers, their time to bet them is past. Like, I think you're getting, do they deserve to be one of the biggest favorites we've seen in like recent history at plus 650 on most sites? I don't think I agree with that. And I think you summarized the Tarasenko trade well. By no means am I saying I wouldn't have made it for Florida. Like, they got a great price to bring in a guy that is going to be useful in various spots in the lineup. I don't think it's a trade that makes me want to bet them at like lower numbers though, where like so I think their numbers are trending down obviously based off their play too. but I wouldn't take like a better number. I don't think this moves the needle in that way. And like you said, until someone gets hurt, you look at it and he could theoretically upgrade Nick Cousins, right? I think everyone would consider him a better player than Nick Cousins on the second line. I don't know if I don't think he'd ever crack their top power play unit, maybe not even their second power play unit. But I think it really comes down to what you do when someone gets hurt, because that Cousins, Bennett, and Kachuk line has played really, really well together. Like they were terrorizing people last playoffs, and that was one of their biggest strengths. So for the time being, I'm looking at him like, what winger is Tarasenko actually better than on their team, which is also a testament to how good they are. But even
Right.
this third line is like Luosterainen and Rodriguez, and they're both playing really good right now. So basically, you're saying you're probably going to put him in that Cousins role and hope that line gets better. You're never touching the top line. So for me, it's just one of those things when you think about it, like it's great insurance. Someone's gonna get hurt. You'll be able to put him in there. But for the time being, and like this game, I'm like, yeah, I don't think they're better than they have been.
Yep. So we're kind of on song with those trades. Okay, Blues and New Jersey. St. Louis is plus 150. They are playing their third and four nights against the Devils team that did not get the new coach bump against the Panthers. They are minus 180 for this one. The total here is 6.5. If you were to think about it, these two teams are a perfect fit for one another. Like the Blues can win a game in which they are shelled, just absolutely shelled on the shot clock because they can get, Bennington can get hot. I mean, even Joel Hofer has had some strong numbers this season too in goal, but it will likely be Bennington here. They've got those clinical offensive players. You always note that you think that they're maybe a little underrated by their actual scoring chance numbers. At least scoring chance for. Defensively, we know they're a mess and they can get hemmed into their own zone at 5-on-5 for eons at a time. And the Devils, that's what they do best, right? They just do such a good job of tilting the ice in the right direction. But they are always one mistake and one um, poor play from a goalie away from just coming completely unglued. And the Blues are, in my mind, a type of team that can just sniff that out. No way I'm betting New Jersey here. I do think that people expect them to show better uh in this new coach bounce spot compared to what they did against the Panthers team that is rolling. But you can't trust the goaltending. You can't trust the defense right now. I actually would have so much more interest in betting St. Louis, but they are also a mess themselves. And I don't know what's going to happen with Buchnevich before the puck drop tomorrow. His name's certainly been out there. He's a huge part of that top line that does most of the damage for St. Louis. If he's in and all looks kind of settled, I would play St. Louis at 150 or better. But that's a caveat I think that goes for every game. Is we're recording this Wednesday afternoon. We try to get it out as early as possible to help you get the best numbers possible. The downside to that in a situation like this is that people can get traded and people can get scratched without us seeing it coming. So just keep an eye on that one. But St. Louis or nothing for me. I do understand where you're going here and isolating just New Jersey's offense.
Yeah, I like the Devils team total at the time of recording is at plus 104. I think that's a great play. And I think that's a really good way to target the Devils here with the way that they'll probably win the game. I'd rather take on the chance that they win it or lose it, scoring 4 goals, than back minus 180. I think that the chances they win this game like 3-1 or 3-2 aren't that high. So I think if you're going to play the Devils, getting plus 104 for them to go over 3.5 is the clear way to do it. I'd rather take that chance than them winning some low scoring game versus the Blues. And the Blues have been still giving up so many chances and getting such good goaltending. I think that was again the case for Sounders. They were pretty lucky to hold them to what they did. And I like the way that the Devils' speedy forwards can get on this defense core that has looked pretty rough in transition. There's been some pretty bad sequences over the last couple games. So I think that's just the way that I want to target a potential Devils bounce back here is them getting some offense. I think they'll find a way to win this game, but I'd rather just take that number. And if you get the worst possible goaltending performance or you get one of those things where the Blues power play goes off, you can still win. So not to mention you're just getting a drastically better price than betting the win anyways. So yeah, I think that's a good look on this game.
Okay, a weird one in Tampa Bay between the Flames and Lightning. A lot of rumors about Noah Hannafin's preferred destination being Tampa Bay and Calgary trying to accommodate that so they can get the best possible return for the top four defensemen. Calgary's plus 125 right now, Lightning minus 150, total of 6.5. It's a weird situation because I don't think Noah Hannafin, it's almost like a three-way money line here about what he would if he plays in this game. And I'd make the favorite that he doesn't play in the game. I'd make the second favorite that he plays for the Lightning. And then I'd make that he plays for the Calgary Flames a decent long shot. Because even if they don't trade him to Tampa Bay, I don't think that they're going to want to play him for this one unless they think that there's a chance in hell that maybe he circles back and wants to resign with them. Doesn't sound like that's happening. Um, you were talking about how Calgary, we said this about Montreal in the opposite direction. A lot of times teams will make incremental like process gains that maybe people don't notice because they haven't won. And Montreal was starting to show that despite not winning many games. And then they were able to knock off the Predators for us as one of our underdogs. And I think something similar is happening with Calgary, where people are giving them a lot of credit for the spunk they're showing, despite selling off assets, but their game has not looked all that sharp at all, and don't know if it's getting noticed as much right now. Um, the problem is I don't trust this Lightning team as a minus 150 favorite, even at home, even with the possibility that Hannafin uh, legitimately plays for them. So uh, I'm gonna pass here on Calgary and Tampa.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass too. I'm kind of I feel like the minus 148 is a little short. I think just like kind of based off the roster, the Flames are about to come down to earth. They do have Markstrom just winning games on his own. That Kraken game was a perfect example of first off where the team might be because that they almost had a chance to win and steal it the way they did versus Pittsburgh just because of what Markstrom did. But I also think that shows like what Tampa might be able to do. And Tampa's been really good on home ice. So just kind of looking at the numbers, I think minus 148 is maybe a little short, but I'll pass for the time being. Maybe see about getting on Tampa live if they go down, I think could be an option. But yeah, I didn't quite have conviction for a play here.
Okay. One that you do have a play on is Buffalo and Nashville. Sabres plus 136, Preds minus 162, total of 6.5. I do agree with you. The Sabres have been a team I've been looking to back here, but this price on the Predators at home, given what they've looked like, and the offensive good like chutzpah that they've shown against a Sabres team that is trying to shut games down as much as they can. Like I do think that they should be able to open this one up, and that bodes well for Nashville. But I think the price looks just right.
Yeah, I'm close on this one. I think it's one of those ones kind of depends where reader or what listeners get when it comes out tomorrow. I wouldn't hate like some of the opening numbers if you can get to minus 160. I'd say I would play the Preds. I think they can bounce back here. Um, but I don't know if I'll sit around it too long. That's kind of the soft openers ahead of Buffalo's game tonight. I do think that the Sabres could be a decent team to kind of try to fade here. And, they're not going to have UPL and net, who are probably not. I mean, maybe if they win tonight, they might go back to back or something just because of like how do or die the spot would be, I guess. But, you talk about losing him and Middlestat. I think that like Byram will play in this game, but I still think their roster will be worse unless Byram's just going to immediately kind of bounce back into form than what it has been with Middlestat. So the number looks a little short on the Preds here to me, but not like my favorite play of the slate or anything. I don't think it's that exciting to say like bet the Preds at minus 155, but I thought this game is probably worthy of more like a minus 170 price tag for the Preds.
Wild and Coyotes, this one at Mullet Arena in Arizona. Minnesota's a minus 148 favorite. Coyotes coming back plus 124, total 6. This feels like a game where you could see a zillion different lineup combinations depending on what these teams decide to do with certain players. Jason Zucker, Matt Dumba for the Coyotes, Nick Bukestad, perhaps Alex Kerfoot, and on the other side, Minnesota, like Brandon Duhaime, Walker Dewar's name's been out there a little bit. So, um, you're gonna have to do a lot of homework before this game, and I don't think that it's the type of game with the type of odds that I think it's worth it. So this looks fine to me. So I'm just happy to punt it.
Yeah, the one play that I did like was the totals that were set at 6 with -115 as of Wednesday. I would play 6 to -125. I think that the Coyotes have just become such an over team the way that they're getting nothing in the way of goaltending. Ingram had some really ugly sequences versus Chicago, and they just keep generating at will. I actually think their top nine looks pretty good right now, the Coyotes. So I think the avenues are there. They're getting crushed on the penalty kill right now, which is always likely to be a problem versus the Wild. So I think the avenues are kind of there for this one to open up. Wouldn't play 6.5, but don't hate going with the over on this one, even though it always feels like such a change from recent years to play the over in a Wild Coyotes game. But I do think this spot calls for it.
On to the Islanders, red hot Islanders, -265, heading to the Shark Tank where they'll take on who knows what the Sharks will look like tomorrow, but right now it's +215. This total is 6. Um, I've got nothing on terms of a side. The Coyotes, you'd likely think they'd be without like Anthony Duclair, maybe your boy Justin Bailey, perhaps Luke Kunin. Uh, they could take a pretty big chunk out of what is already a terrible terrible roster. The Islanders, on the other hand, are looking, much better defensively since Patrick Roy sunk his teeth into this team. If I was to target anything, and I'll be up, so I might play some stuff. I think Noah Dobson to score remains a good number. He's been, hanging around like 6 to 1, and he's getting looks. They're not going in, and that top line of Barzell, Horvat, and Nelson, when he's out there with him, have been they've been clicking, and he's should be scoring soon. So I think 6 to 1 is good on him. I would also say the same thing. Once again, our boy Mike Riley is going to be a long number, and him and Sebastian Aho. I mean, you can even play Aho. Like I would play Aho first goal scorer because the numbers are just always absurdly long. For him compared to the rest of the decor, and he's out there with Riley and that unit when they're out there with one of the Islanders' top 6 forward groups. They've been snapping it around. Aho had 2 clean looks against the Blues the other night, and anything could go off here. I do think also you can probably target one of those top line guys for a hat trick bet here as well with the way they've been going. So, um, that's it. Islanders, baby. Maybe they'll get Pavel Buchnevich, and we can start talking Islanders futures up here.
Yeah, I like the Islanders are priced at -114 to score over 3.5 goals. I think similar to some of these other teams, that's a good bet. But also don't want to piss people off. Some of these Islanders openers, both of the Sharks and Islanders openers have moved so much over the like each of the last 4 games. It feels like it's the same thing every single day. Like both Stars games, the Isles versus the Blues, right? Like they moved from -150 to -180, which is a pretty humongous difference. So this will be another one of these games that I think will be kind of a gong show throughout the day as like people piece together who might be out of the lineup and in the lineup. I think we might wake up tomorrow. The Islanders are -270 right now. I think we might wake up and they're -340, and I wouldn't want to target them on that avenue. But I do think that you just keep betting against the Sharks to give up a lot of goals. They're not getting any goaltending. Their defensive play is horrible. Even these games where they have kind of like gone on the front foot and gotten leads, once a good team starts pressing on them right now, everything just goes in. I don't think there was like a game where I felt more confident that a team would blow a lead than last night when the Stars were uh, down when the Stars were down 1 with 5 minutes left. And it was one of those ones like I hate posting those to the app because sometimes right when I post if a team scores, then you look like you're just trying to rig it. And I've never posted one that I felt more worried that would happen than in that game. And it's just like you look at it until with Blackwood out, their goaltending's so bad. I thought Corona, if he goes, looked really bad versus the Stars, even though the actual process looked really reasonable. So I think your Islanders should pay off here. They've actually been doing it for us lately too. So They're starting to quell my concerns a little bit, and I think they can hit 4 here. I think it's that price is just way too short.
Islanders, you can get them at 75 to 1. Look out. Uh, okay, we'll wrap up this part with the Sens and Kings, with Ottawa plus 164, Los Angeles minus 200. This total is sitting at 2.5. Excuse me, 2.5, 6.5. I've got the soccer show later, so that's what I'm thinking about. Nothing for me here. The Senators on the second night of a back-to-back. Lord only knows how what version of them shows up in any game, including the one on Wednesday night when they're going to play the San Diego Gulls. So I'm I'm going to really try so hard not to bet the Senators unless they're for the rest of the season, unless they're like plus 220 or better.
Yeah, I didn't really have much here either. The Kings looked pretty sharp again last night. I thought that was a really well played game versus Vancouver. It was fun to win a coin flip for once in overtime, but I thought that again the Kings process looked pretty solid. I think I specifically I think this is an interesting note to throw out there on this pod too quick is that Andy McNeil broke down how regulation wins have done versus just backing big favorites to win straight up this year. To this point, teams past minus 185 have been less profitable if you bet them to win in regulation. So what like you would have had a slightly better return if you had just taken their super juice number and not had the ones that you would have won in overtime not count. I I kind of specifically think this could be a decent spot to take the Kings to win by like 2 or 3 because it feels like one of these ones if Ottawa's going to no show it and they're not going to get any goaltending and not just completely not be there, I feel like I'd rather take my chances that it's just one of these ridiculous Sens games that gets out of hand. So I kind of like think the opposite of kind of what Andy had broken down in that article applies to this specific spot where like if I feel like if the Sens are going to no show this one on a back to back versus a hot Kings team, I think it's going to be like a complete no show where like their heads just aren't in it and they really just don't care. And at this point, I mean, the Sens are playing for absolutely nothing. I think the fans are rightfully fully cheering for losses again. So I don't know. I don't hate it as a spot to just kind of see them get run out of the building. I feel like they're still holding up a little value just based off like their strong underlying process and the fact that for so long it looked like they were due for kind of better results there, and now it feels like the bottom's kind of just out of this team.
That is totally fair. Okay, let's go to best bets. Now, your favorite bet comes in on Montreal and Carolina. The Habs are plus 260 in Raleigh. Canes minus 325, total 6.5. I had jotted down something similar in our show notes. I knew exactly where you were going to go with this. It's a set it and forget it play when these two teams meet.
Yeah, I hate to use the phrase system play, but this feels like it's almost just one of those ones every time the number is like a little too low with backing Carolina, or I should say Montembeau to go over. I think it'll be 31.5 saves, and I would still play to 31.5 at minus 115, but maybe 30.5. Would stop at 32.5. And that's why these are a little annoying to give out because obviously we have to guesstimate, but 31.5 is a high line, even for a Canes game. The Habs have also gotten their game a little under control recently, like talked about. So maybe that'll keep it from being 32.5. And it just feels like such a natural matchup for Carolina to just own the puck and just keep funneling everything at the net. But the Habs have been pretty solid in those game scripts this season. So I think it's one of these ones where I like the chances that Carolina just kind of thoroughly owns the play and has one of these kind of trademark Carolina games. They'll be well rested, they'll be at full health. So I do think that we'll see the Canes kind of just really own play, but I feel like that's my preferred way to kind of target them winning here is backing them just to get a ton of shots on goal. If you want to pick your Carolina shooters, the numbers will be pretty juiced, but I don't know if they'll be juiced enough relative to what we usually see. And the other thing to like about like backing Carolina shooters in a game like this compared to their standard game is a lot of their big names don't play that many minutes anyways. Rod usually rolls the lines pretty consistently. So it's not like some of these ones where you can just end up with or like that kind of works in your favor, I should say, where like Necas, Svechnikov, whoever it is, they're not getting usage like these Avs big stars. So It's not like you're looking at it thinking that they'll be down too much versus Montreal. So I think that's not a bad case there. But yeah, I think that probably Montembeau saves should be a really playable number.
Yep, I'll probably play the 50 plus or some sort of lottery ticket that will lose. Right bet, but it will still lose. Right church, wrong pew, as our friend of the program, Mike Francesa, would say. On to my favorite bet. The Knights are hosting the Canucks. This one is a pick 'em. The total is at 6. It's in Vegas. Anthony Mantha will play. Um, for Vegas, he'll make his debut. And we talked about that actually being a trade that I think actually really helps Vegas, especially right now when their 5-on-5 numbers have just completely plummeted. Um, that said, I'm happy to take them on here. I think that Vancouver has sort of solidified or stabilized itself. I know that there's now rumors swirling around Elias Lindholm being traded after they just traded for him to get Jake Gensel, and we talked about how the noise quieting around Vancouver is actually a legitimate thing that you should be just taking note of in terms of their form. So maybe that kind of bugs the team a bit, but I still think with the way Vegas is going right now and Stone's still out of the lineup, it's a Vancouver spot for me here as they continue to try to just take care of their business and keep both keep Edmonton at bay in the race in the Pacific.
Yeah, I actually was on the total here. I like the under 6. I think I mean it's a scary spot when we talk about the way Vegas has been defending lately. It's been a train wreck and then they've just been trying to score their way out of trouble. But it feels like a good get right spot on home ice for me with the Knights here. I don't think they're going to, just let up the way that they have recently at the end of that road trip with the horrible Columbus game. So I think 6 is a good time to buy on the under here. And I do think the Canucks are kind of trending towards that. We had talked about think it was 2 weeks ago over that during that stupid beat, right before that stupid beat versus the Kings, where the game ended up being 5-1 after like 2-0 the whole time. I think that the Canucks are going to trend towards being more of an under team because I think what we're going to get out of Talkett and that group is that their early defensive form is going to be more of like what kind of holds from like what everyone was kind of considering one of the luckiest runs compared to like their offensive play. And everyone was talking about like all the Canucks fans were coming up with their reasons why they were scoring on every shot and why their rush chances, like why they're finishing at such a higher rate than anyone would have expected when they're in like the league's bottom third in terms of actual rush chances created. And now I feel like they've hit the wall on that front. I think games like that Kings game are going to become more the norm where this is still a good team and it's going to be an annoying team to play against and get out of the playoffs. But I don't think they're like some full blown offensive powerhouse. I think that this is more like a team that needs to do the right things to insulate Thatcher Demko and go from there. And that's kind of shown at the start of this road trip. So I feel like that's the way I want to target this game. I think the Knights are going to come out with like a much more sound effort and insulate Hill better than they have recently. And that the Canucks are kind of right there step for step with them defensively. So yeah, I like the under in this one.
All right, that does it for this episode and this week of Line Change. But a quick programming note: you can find us on YouTube on Power Plays, where we'll give out our best bets for Saturday's slate. Keep an eye on the Action Network YouTube channel for that. And also a quick heads up that North Carolina is launching sports betting this Monday, March 11th. So if you're in the Tar Heel State, take advantage of the best sign-up offers across every sports book by following the link in this episode description. All the North Carolina offers all in one place. Just check out the link in this episode description. If you
Get
missed
those
it or
Canes futures in.
get those Canes futures in before they trade for I don't know who knows what they're weird. They're a weird group. Um, in case you forgot or missed it or weren't paying attention or want to know, so you can fade us to underdogs. Nick liked the Maple Leafs against the Bruins. I like the Washington Capitals against the Penguins. His best bet came in on Sam Montembeault over 31.5 saves against the Hurricanes, and I like the Vancouver Canucks as a pick 'em or better against Vegas on Thursday night. Thank you for listening, rating, reviewing, subscribing, all that. We've been hearing back from a lot of listeners of late. I think a lot more than usual, so we appreciate that as well. Always happy to have those conversations as well. For Nick, and well, also best of luck to Tim today in his quarterfinal. So for Nick, I'm Mike. Thank you for listening, and best of luck with all your bets.